We're honored to have one of the greatest entertainers to ever grace a stage anywhere in the world, Mr. Wayne Newton. It's great to have you on the Ray Carr Show, Wayne. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Well, I'm very, very thrilled to be talking to you, and we're really looking forward to the Cleveland date with a great deal of anticipation, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. Saturday, March 25th, 8 o'clock at the Roxino in Northfield. It probably will be the biggest show that Cleveland will have this year. And so, Wayne, let me ask you this. How many instruments do you play during the show?
Well, during the show, I will play really whatever the crowd wants to hear. I play 13 all total. And so usually they'll end up asking for maybe piano or drums or guitar or fiddle or those kind of things, you know. But whatever it is they want to hear, that's what this show is about, and that's why it differs from the shows that we usually do. That's what it's called Up Close and Personal, so I can take requests or answer questions or anything the audience wants to know about.
Wayne, I have always loved your music, and some of my favorite music goes way back to the days when the Newton brothers were together, you and your brother Jerry, and a song called "Baby, Baby, Baby."
Oh my goodness, you're going way back. You're too young to remember those, Ray.
I play them on my radio show, and I actually love those records.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, when did you know? When was the first time you knew that you were going to be an entertainer? I mean, when did it hit you?
It was kind of an interesting story, I think. At least it was for me. My parents took me to see a Grand Ole Opera road show that had come to Roanoke, Virginia, which is where we were living then. I was born in Virginia. And so we were way up in the balcony and way up in the nosebleed section, you know. And I was frankly too young and too small to even see the performers. And on that show was Hank Williams, Hawkshaw Hawkins, and Kitty Wells. And so even though I couldn't see them, I could enjoy their music. And I found myself looking around at the audience and to see what the music was doing to the audience and their faces and the happiness on their faces. And I turned to my mother and I said, "That's what I want to do." And she took that to mean music. So that's when she started with music lessons, first on the piano, which lasted one lesson. And
wow.
And then when the teacher asked me if I knew my ABCs, and I said no, she tied a note around my neck and made me sit on the porch until my parents came back. And so they then took me to a guitar teacher, and he asked me the same thing, and I you know, kind of crossed my fingers. Oh no, here we go again. And he said, "Can you count to 12?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Okay, I'll teach you by numbers." And so that's how I first started taking my first guitar lessons.
Wow. And then from there, it just kind of just snowballed, and you got better and better.
Well, actually, it was really wild because by the time I was 6, I was doing a local radio show in Roanoke with a band in the morning at 6 o'clock for 30 minutes before I went to school. And then when we moved to Arizona, because I had bronchial asthma, we ended up doing a local television show from the time I was 8 until I was 15. And then I came to Las Vegas at 15. So I really don't remember when I wasn't working. You know?
Wow. Now, you did live in area near Newark, Ohio for a little bit before you moved out west.
Well, actually, we moved out west twice. We came to Phoenix first when the doctors finally diagnosed what my problem was, and that being bronchial asthma, and said to my parents, "You better get him out of that climate." And so we moved to Arizona. My dad could not find work, so we stayed in Arizona about 6 weeks, and it was summer, so I cleared up like no problem at all, no attacks or anything like that. And so then when he couldn't find work, we moved back to Newark, Ohio, because my dad had a sister who lived there. And we lived with them and played around Newark for about a year, actually until winter set in. And I became deathly ill again. And so they had to give up whatever they had gathered in Newark for that almost a year, and we moved back to Phoenix. So we actually went to Phoenix twice.
Wow. When you got to Vegas and you established yourself in Vegas, at that time, did you see Vegas as something that was going to be long term, or did you just say, well, it's going well now, I don't know what's going to be, how it's going to be in the future?
It really, Ray, it didn't hit me until about, we were 5 years into being in Las Vegas, and we got hit immediately upon coming here uh, with 6 shows a night, 6 nights a week. And that's an awful lot of work for a duo. And we then added, finally, after a couple of years, we added like a drummer and a bass player. But then we also traveled all over the state to play lounges, and I got in a big discussion up at Harrah's in Tahoe with the entertainment director, and I said, listen, I know you have artists that come in here who are big stars that do not have an opening act. And I said, why don't you let me be their opening act in the main showroom and just pay me whatever you're paying me to play your lounge? And he became very irritated and very, very irritated, and told me that that was never going to happen. I was never going to play the main room, and I better get that out of my head. And if I didn't stop that kind of request, he's not sure that ever bring me back into the lounge either. And by this time I was probably 17 or 18, and I realized that I was as far as we could go in the lounges. And so I made the determination that I was still young enough to quit and go back to school and learn how to do something. And so I called my manager and I said, this is what I will finish my contract at the Fremont, but I'm then going to never play another lounge. And he said, how are we going to eat? And I said, we're going to have to find work somewhere else, some other place. And so we did find work other places, and that continued for about 6 months. And then we had the same gentleman who booked us on that 6-month engagements found a gig for us in Sydney, Australia.
Wow.
Opening a nightclub there. And so it took us 19 hours to fly from Buffalo to
that's a long flight.
It's a long flight. Well, they had to stop anywhere there was land, to refuel. And so we walked out on opening night, and seated there was Jack Benny.
Jack Benny.
He was in Australia doing a tour across Australia. And so that's how I ended up moving from the lounges into the main room. Because in those days, when you were important to these hotels as a lounge act, that's where you stayed. I mean, they never gave you the opportunity to move into a main room. I think in the years that I have been in Vegas, I can name, on one hand, 5 acts that made it out of the lounges into the main showroom.
But I'm sure there were other acts that deserved it. They just wouldn't give them the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Most of the lounge acts, you would consider that to be kind of the learning ground, the home team kind of thing, And but that wasn't it. You were going to stay in the lounge, and that's where they wanted you,
Well, that's a great story. And I was also wondering, somebody, you're such a great entertainer. How do you get ready for every performance every night? It seems like a difficult thing that you have to, I'm assuming you go through a routine every day.
Well, it's interesting because I think that, and thank you for asking, and thank you for all the compliments, by the way, but I think that I've been doing this so long, literally since I was 4 years old. When I wake up each day, the first thing on my mind is what time I have to leave for work. And so the rest of my day is based around what I have to do at night. And so the way actually that I prepare is just being aware that each night is going to be different from the one before. And that works 2 things for me. Number one, it prepares me for that night, but most of all, it never becomes old school to me. Every show is new, every show is different, and most of all, I treat every show like it could be my last one, you know.
Well, that's well said. Entertainment is one of those things that's very subjective. I mean, the people, sometimes they don't like you, and sometimes you win them over. I mean, that happens to everybody, and I've been in the entertainment.
Absolutely.
But how do you know?
Absolutely.
Do you know as an entertainer when you're looking out at the crowd, there could be a segment of the population in the crowd that may not like you as much as others, and do you ever try to win them over by maybe showing them an extra attention during the show?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I start out my show, no matter which, whether it be the show I'm going to be doing in Cleveland or the one that I would do here in Vegas with 28 musicians and 3 backup singers and all kind of production and the rest. I walk out and I do 3 songs that are totally different from each other. One could be a rock song, one could be a big band standard song, one could be a ballad. And really what I'm doing is I'm kind of gauging the audience at that point to see where their head's at, what it is they want to hear. Because depending on where that audience is from, primarily, and you can really tell it when you're on tour. For example, when I play Cleveland on tour, or I play Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or any of those kind of cities on basically the East Coast, Atlantic City, on and on, those people want to hear a lot more big band, standard kind of music. Once you get into Texas, New Mexico, Louisiana, they want to hear more country music. And so those 3 songs are kind of my gauge to tell me where that audience is and where the hot spots are and where the people who are not thrilled to be there, who might have gotten dragged by their wife or husband, depending on what
Yeah.
the case is, it tells me where they're at, and I can kind of play to them and bring them on. And I much prefer winning people over because they become bigger fans, interestingly enough, than people who come there expecting to enjoy it.
Wow, yeah, I agree with that. Now, I read somewhere in 1962, Bobby Darin took you under his wing a little bit, and he was originally offered Donkashane, but he thought it would be better for you to sing it. Is that true?
Well, actually, it is true, and it's more than took me under his wing to a little bit. He actually produced all my records from the record before Donkashane on for a good probably 15 years. And he kind of became my mentor in many, many ways. Donkashane was truly written for Bobby to record and follow Mac the Knife with it. And we were in the studio recording Donkashane. He had given the song to me when the producer, not the producer, but the publisher of Donkashane called him and said, "Hey, I hear you're in the studio, and I hear that you've given the song that we intended for you. I hear you're giving it to some young upstart from Las Vegas. And since we published the song, is that true, that you're giving the song away?" And Bobby said, "Yes, it is." And the guy said, "Well, consider this phone call, because we do publish the song. Consider this phone call is a notice that you cannot have the song if you're going to give it away." And Bobby said, "I've got good and bad news for you." He said, "Number one, I love the song. I think it's going to be a big hit." He said, "Number two, you don't give me that song with this kid, I can promise you in my entire recording career, I will never record another song that you publish."
Huh.
And that's how the guy ended up giving the song up, and then Bobby giving it to me.
Bert Camford was the one who wrote that song.
Well, Bert wrote the music to it out of Germany, obviously, and but the English lyric was written by Billy Crystal, the comedian.
Really? I didn't know.
It was his uncle who wrote the American lyric to it.
Okay.
So the payoff to that was, as years pass, I get asked to go to Germany and do a special with Liza Minnelli. And so I get there, And the producer says, "You are going to sing Dankeschön, aren't you?" And I said, "No, sir, I'm not." And he said, "Well, that you mean you're not. You're going to sing Dankeschön." I said, "No, the song was written as a slang term for Dankeschön. It's Dankeschön, and none of the lyrics rhyme with Dankeschön." So,
Wow. It's such a great song. It came out in 1963, and you play it today, it sounds fresh. Still sounds
well,
great.
it's been amazing. It's been like a hit about every 10 years, you know, and then it's been a commercial recording behind a lot of commercials and that kind of thing. And it kind of never goes away, even though we have enjoyed larger hits like Daddy Don't You Walk So Fast, sold probably twice as many records as Dankeschön. But Dankeschön is the one that people remember, so that's the one they ask for.
Yeah. And Red Roses for a Blue Lady was great, too.
Yes, we have enjoyed to date 17 either number one or top 20 songs. And we have recorded to date 165 albums.
That's amazing. Wayne Newton, our special guest here on the Ray Carr Show. Wayne Newton will be performing Saturday, March 25th, 8 o'clock at the Roxino in Northfield. Tickets are available, and I would highly recommend going to the concert because I will be there, and I cannot wait to see you, Wayne, because I know it's going to be a tremendous show.
Well, Ray, thank you very, very much, and I look forward to you being there and coming back and saying hello, and I'll buy you a cup of coffee, okay?
That'd be great. Wayne, thank you so much, and God bless, and we'll talk to you on the 25th.
God bless you, my friend. I'll see you then.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.